Hey friends, and welcome to a video where I tear apart one of the worst adaptations ever made. So in honor of December, I am going to talk about an adaptation of the Nutcracker that should not have existed, and that is Disney's Nutcracker. And while there's a lot to complain about, I am going to focus only on it as an adaptation of the book and the ballet. And while the ballet is technically an adaptation of the book, I'm still going to count that as an original source for the story. So, where did the movie go wrong? Well, first, the main character is Clara. In the book, Clara was the name of one of the toy dolls, and Maria was the main character. I know the ballet changed her name to Clara, but I'm still gonna go with the book adaptation for the name because rarely do any versions get right Maria. And then, rather than opening with the Stahlbaum family getting ready for their big party that everyone's going to, or instead of starting off with maybe the party guests and Drosselmeyer making their way through the snowy blizzard night to the party, they end up opening this movie with a very generic version of a Christmas movie where it's just a Harry Potter type owl and ice skating, snowball fights, a random horse carriage, and a camera zooming through the town. And this matters because the Nutcracker is supposed to be a very distinct style or a very distinct story, and that's why you open up with a party or people going to the party. Opening up in such a generic way could be for any movie. And it's almost like the movie makers didn't care that they were making the Nutcracker. And then another change from the source material, we end up going to an attic where Clara and Fritz are making a Rube Goldberg type mousetrap. So, firstly, the brother was named Frederick, not Fritz. And while the children did love playing with toys, they were not setting up mice traps, and they were also not talking about physics and Newton's 3 laws. And that is where this movie majorly fails and it just goes downhill from here. They try to turn Clara into a strong and empowered woman, but they do that in the most shallow way, and that is only by having her quote certain physical principles and her barely making any inventions. In the book, the inventor was Drosselmeyer. He was the one who made clocks, who made toys that moved on their own, who made mechanical palaces. And that's why when the family gets the Nutcracker and he tells the story of how the Nutcracker is actually alive, they think it's just one of his fancies. It's one of his made-up stories to go along with a toy. And only Maria finds out later that the story is real. And Maria was already smart on her own. She didn't need to prove anything. I will give this movie credit for a couple things. The first thing is that they did include the sister Louise. She is the oldest sister. And most adaptations that I have seen, even the ballet, leave her out. So I am kind of surprised that they included her in this. And then, more failure of an adaptation. The mother is dead because Disney loves killing off its mothers. And the dad, I don't believe this dad cares about his kids. Whenever someone goes off or speaks up or whatever, he's just like, well, how dare you? I'm so bored. And while I am glad that this movie did include Louise as a character, she does nothing, really. She only exists to be the girly girl to Clara's smart girl, and have Clara be jealous that she can't be pretty and frilly like her sister. So basically her sister's a prop. And then Clara does not get a Nutcracker as a gift, she gets a mechanical Fabergé egg. I shouldn't have to explain why that is a bad adaptation. And all she does is look at the egg and then looks through the box that the egg came in and finds a note from her mother saying everything you need is inside. And only then does she say, oh, this has a pin tumbler lock. I can't open it without a key. If Disney wanted to make her smart, they should have shown her trying to reverse engineer the egg or maybe try to pick the lock on the egg. Instead, just having her say, oh, I already know what it is, I'm not going to bother trying, doesn't make her smart. It's just lazy writing. And then, more in the vein of strong, empowered woman, she does not care about expectations. When the expectations are to spend time with her family during the holidays at a party. So this is a nitpick This is not really part of an adaptation, but I'm still gonna ask the question, when did this mother die? Because Clara's acting like she died last month, Dad is acting like she died last year, and neither the brother or sister really seem to care about their mom. And then I do not understand why Clara then says that she doesn't understand the real world anymore. She seemed to understand physics in the attic. She seems to understand pin tumbler locks. What are we supposed to believe that she doesn't know her place or doesn't know anything about the real world? And then on their drive to Drosselmeyer's party, that's actually another change from the adaptation. It's not Drosselmeyer's party, it's the Stahlbaum family's party. But anyways, on the drive over, it took me 3 times watching this movie to find out where they put the Russian dance, the famous Russian dance that everybody likes, is one of those popular songs from the ballet, and took me 3 times to figure out that it was turned into background music for their drive. And not even good background music, like it was turned into a waltz. And the only reason I could tell that it was a Russian dance was because I was listening closely, desperately trying to find that song because it is so popular. It shows up in every adaptation. And that's a big thing with this movie, too. It's almost ashamed of being connected to the ballet, where when it does show samples of the music, it's just background music like that, or it's maybe a 5-second snippet like they do with the Waltz of the Snowflakes later. So even as an adaptation of the ballet, it fails because it refuses to adequately utilize the music. And I'm not expecting them to include the more obscure songs like the drunk song or the we're starting the party, let's dance along song, or the what was that song? The everybody showing up in the Candy Kingdom song. I'm not expecting any of those because while I do love those songs, I also understand that they're not very famous. They're not very well known. But if you're going to make an adaptation of the Nutcracker, you have to include the well-known songs at least, and you have to do it well. A good version of this is the Barbie Nutcracker, where it actually utilizes most songs from the ballet, and it's the only music you hear in the entire movie. And even though they do shuffle songs around, I don't mind it because they're using the music as it should be. They use the slower music for the slower moments, the more upbeat music for the action-packed scenes and for the running away from the bad guy scenes. But no, the only songs we hear from the ballet are the Russian waltz. The only songs we hear from the ballet in this movie are the Russian dance, the overture, the Waltz of Snowflakes, Waltz of the Flowers, and then the Sugar Plum Candy Shepherd People dance. And that's some more Easter eggs of the music, but I'm not counting those because they are so brief. And then at the party, Clara sneaks off to Drosselmeyer's workshop, which is not supposed to look like a wizard's workshop. It's supposed to look more mechanical. Think steampunk. And again, we see an owl, the Harry Potter owl. And this is supposed to be a nod to the book and the ballet, but it doesn't work. Because in the book, the owl was on top of the grandfather clock that Drosselmeyer had made the family. And when Maria sneaks downstairs to check on her Nutcracker, make sure that he's not broken very much, and she sees the mice and the Mouse King starting to invade their home and attack the toys and the candy people, she notices Drosselmeyer taking the place of the owl. He's sitting on the clock and he's watching everything. So other than Maria, he's the only other one who knows that the Nutcracker story is true. And also he's just causing some mischief. The ballet continues this, but not with him on the clock, but with him either coming out of the clock or dancing around the clock. But in Disney's version, the owl's turned into a pet, and all the owl does is just watch Clara. That's it. And then more trying to make Clara smart by having her fix one of Drosselmeyer's carousels. I already complained about this. And then again, with Drosselmeyer, he just looks at the egg and says, oh yeah, I made this, and it has a pin tumbler lock. I can't break it open. And then when Clara goes upstairs, Drosselmeyer tells his pet owl, I know it's not going to be easy, but it was her mother's dying wish, so watch over her. To repeat, the mother's not dead in the book because she is the one who takes care of Maria after she gets attacked by the Mouse King. The owl is not a pet, is this decoration on top of the grandfather clock. And Drosselmeyer, while he does see everything, He is also kind of Mary Poppins-ish in that he denies anything fantastical happened. Where when Maria says, "Oh, I saw the Mouse King and the Nutcracker fighting, they were actually about to kill each other. Drosselmeyer, do you believe me? You can tell them what happened." He goes, "Ah, no, 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 no. Ah, what foolish, childish fantasies you have. How dare you bring me into this?" Yeah, he was definitely more mischievous in the book. In the movie, he's just stoic, supposed to be mysterious, and then only exists to prop up Clara and say, "Oh, you're very smart. Oh, you're a good inventor. Oh, your mother loves you so much." And then as we return to the party scene, we get a little bit of ballet dancing. And again, just like Disney is ashamed to use Tchaikovsky's music, it's ashamed to use any ballet dancing. The only ballet dancing we see in this film is this 2-second snippet of someone performing for the audience. And then later we get maybe 2 minutes worth of ballet dancing by Misty Copeland. And while I love her, I'm going to complain about that part when I get there. And then this is the only other thing I will give Disney credit for as a change from the original source, is that when it's time to go find your gifts, they use the string method where a string will lead you to your gift, and there's different strings for different people. This is a common tradition for a lot of families and in a lot of different countries. So while this was not in the book or the ballet, this is the only other thing I'm giving credit to Disney for being different from the source material. And then if Clara wants to be smart and scientific, she's doing a bad job because she does not notice that her string goes down a hallway she's never been to before, doesn't notice how it's getting darker, doesn't notice how the wallpaper changes from owls to mice, and does not notice that it's getting colder as she enters the magical realm. And in the book, Maria doesn't get to go to the magical realm until after the Mouse King is dead, about 10-20 pages from the end of the book. And in both the book and the ballet, going into the magical world was a reward for helping the Nutcracker and stopping the Mouse King. And while normally I would not care that there's already a magical world that Clara's visiting, it's handled so poorly. And then we find out that Clara's mother has been to this place, but it's never clear if this place has already existed and she just brought some toys here and they came to life, or if she made this place herself with the help of Drosselmeyer, and that is how they were able to create this magical forest, magical palace, magical everything, and then fill it up with toys and candy and snow and flowers. It's never made clear. And then Clara follows her string to this glowing Christmas tree that has a key in it. And a mouse gets the key first. And then this mouse can really run fast. It can outrun any human. Later on, Clara loses the mouse and comes across the Nutcracker asleep at his post. And in the book, there were toys of color that were said to have darker skin. And I appreciate that Disney's trying to get more representation on the screen by having a black man as the Nutcracker. But in the book, it was also a bit of a racist description where these were not just dark-faced toys, but they were so dark that they shined like gold. I know, it's a weird description, but that's in the book. And Disney gives this Nutcracker gold makeup, like gold lip liner, gold blush, and I don't know if they did this because they wanted their own aesthetic or they were trying to copy the book. If they were trying to copy the book, then that's not good interpretation of that. And then a huge change from the original story is that Clara is royalty this time, and the Nutcracker serves her. In the book, the Nutcracker was actually Drosselmeyer's nephew turned into a toy, and he became a prince because he was brave and noble, and he protected his subjects fiercely, and he was a very kind leader. In the ballet, he's not the nephew, but he's still very brave, very loyal, very courageous. Wait, I just said that. And he's a very good leader. That is what makes him a prince. In this movie, though, it's just Clara being a princess because, oh, it turns out her mom was the queen. Yay. And I really don't like how they made the Nutcracker more of a servant to a white person. And I'm going to complain about that because it is like that, where Clara says, "I don't know my place," and Nutcracker says, "Oh, I know my place." and he follows her orders all the time and has no agency on his own. And yes, I am aware that there are some racist tropes in the book and some in the ballet, but when you're making an adaptation, you shouldn't aim to copy the racism parts. And then we find the mouse that took the key, and the mouse's name is Mouserinks. And this is a problem because Mouserinks was the mother of the Mouse King, not their own mouse. And when the nephew was turned into the Nutcracker, he accidentally kills Lady Mouserings. And that is what makes him mortal enemies with the Mouse King. The Mouse King wants vengeance on the Nutcracker, and the Nutcracker is trying to protect his people from being chewed up by the mice. And then we get the Mouse King, which is just a bunch of mice piled up on top of each other to form this blob that can like create arms or move around or whatever. It's kind of like the gnomes from Gravity Falls, but weaker. So not only in the book was the Mouse King his own character, he also had 7 heads. That was another thing that made him scary and more of a looming threat. And Disney could have done that with having this blob form like 7 different heads to scare people away, but no, it's just supposed to be a giant mouse. And we find out that they are serving Mother Ginger, who was not in the book but was in the ballet. Her job was just to take care of the candy children and kind of be like a babysitter, grandmotherly figure to them. No, and here she's turned into a bad guy, where everyone's like, oh no, Mother Ginger's so scary, run away. We never see this. And then Nutcracker and Clara run away and they go to this palace that's supposed to be the Kremlin, I think. And while the ballet did first start in Russia, the story itself was German because the book took place in Germany. So I don't really get why they turned the palace into the Kremlin. And then 2 more toys that look like the Nutcracker, but according to the subtitles, are the Cavalier and the Harlequin. And these toys did appear during the battle against the Mouse King. They were their own toys, though. They didn't look like Nutcrackers. And also there was more than one Harlequin and more than one Cavalier. And more racism, where the 2 soldiers basically treat the Nutcracker as a punching bag, basically, where they just tease him, they mock him, don't take him seriously, even though he's supposed to be a captain. That's another thing with this movie, too. Nobody takes the Nutcracker seriously, and this is supposed to be his story about his fight against the Mouse King and the mice. But the mice are reduced to secondary antagonists, and the Nutcracker has no agency and no respect from anybody, not even Clara. All she does is give him orders, and she's proud she can give him orders. And then we go inside the palace, and we find out about the regents, who are the kings and queens of their own individual realms, and they all serve basically Clara and her mother. But the mother's dead, so now it's Clara. There were no regents or any lower kings or lower queens in the book or ballet. And also, even though the ballet doesn't have as much of a budget as, say, a movie like this would, the costumes there are still much better than the costumes here. They turned the flower regent into a gay stereotype where he's basically a pansy, literally and figuratively, and just wearing fake flowers all over and looks like an Oompa Loompa. The snow regent basically looks like a walking icicle. And Sugar Plum actually wears this really pretty dress, but it feels more like a Halloween dress or something you would get from a costume store. And they tell Clara, oh, you're so lucky to be alive. You escaped the 4th realm where the mice and Mother Ginger were. Oh my god. And oh yeah, did I mention there was a war? Because this movie doesn't really care to show it. So yeah, apparently Mother Ginger was supposed to be trying to take control of the other realms, and now her realm is closed off, and everyone is avoiding the 4th realm, which is where the mouse went with the key. And they really hammer home, there's a war, there's a war, there's a war, but we see nothing. Because this is supposed to be a war between the Nutcracker and the Mouse King. Now it's a war against Mother Ginger babysitter and everybody else. And also, we see no signs of a war. We don't see people getting ready for a battle. We don't see people training to fight. We don't see anybody really talking about how they can escape. We don't see anybody injured. And I'm not asking for gore, but maybe some crumpled petals or maybe some beat up candy people, something to show that there was something going on. And we see nobody from the fourth realm anywhere in this palace, even though they supposedly abandoned Mother Ginger. They're not here. It's just snow, flowers, candy. No toys. And then rather than actually doing their job and taking care of their people during a war, if there's supposed to be a war, the regents decide to hold a pageant and a tour for Clara. And while the graphics here are nice, the flowers and the snow and the candy people have no impact on the story. And again, it's only a few seconds of screen time for each realm. I think the people who made this movie only did this to cover their basics of the Nutcracker, not to actually tell a story about the Nutcracker. And the pageant is the only other part in this movie where there's ballet dancing. And the main person is Misty Copeland, who is one of the most famous American ballet dancers. And she plays Clara's mom in this ballet. This is a problem because Misty is black, Clara and her mother are white. And I get Disney's trying to go for diversity, but when their only black characters are the Nutcracker who takes orders, Drosselmeyer who never appears, and Misty Copeland who's supposed to play the white mother, this is a failure of representation and diversity. And also, whoever filmed the ballet dancing does not know how to film dance. It's either close-ups or it's too distant you can't really see anything, and it's just not fun to watch the ballet. And also, Sugar Plum talks the entire time, and I hate it. This is what I mean when I say Disney seems to be ashamed of being a part of the ballet or related to the ballet, because I'm not expecting everybody to know that this is the ballet sign for kill, or that crossing arms like this is the sign for death in ballet sign language, but people are smart. They can watch a ballet and get the gist of the story. But no, Sugar Plum has to talk and explain everything that whole time. So yeah, while Misty Copeland is dancing a very beautiful dance, we don't see it because instead we're too busy listening and watching Sugar Plum. And then all this is rendered useless because after the pageant, Sugar Plum takes Clara and Nutcracker downstairs to this huge room called the engine room where there's this giant laser and it's supposed to bring everything to life. And Sugar Plum says that the best way to protect their people from Mother Ginger is to build defense. I shouldn't have to explain to you that this laser engine doesn't exist in the book or ballet, and that while there was some defense needed and some attacking forces during the battle, we never see those battles, they don't exist here, and I still don't believe there's a war going on. Oh, and guess what? This engine can't work without a pendular key. The same key that Clara needs to open her egg. And the only reason the Nutcracker came with these two girls is so he could say, wait, no, Mother Ginger's dangerous, you shouldn't go there. That's literally the only reason why he goes there. And he's, again, given orders by Clara to go with her anyways. So the next day, they go to back to the fourth realm, and they try to find the mice, find Mother Ginger, and get the key back. We do get some of the mice battle music from the ballet, but we only get it when they're tearing apart the carousel. How can mice tear apart a carousel? And it stops as everybody is running away, sucked in the ground, and Clara is sucked in the ground, carried over, and tossed out 20 yards away from where they got her. And in the ballet, Mother Ginger does have a big poofy skirt, and that is where a lot of the candy kids like to hide and play around and under. So in this movie, they made her a giant robot mecha, but they do give her a big skirt, so cool. And then Clara is thrown under the skirt and meets the clowns, who are the only good part in this whole movie. They actually do look like toys, and they look so out of place because they're so dang creepy. And the clown music actually fits here because it's the clown characters, and also it furthers the story along and is not just background music. Too bad it doesn't last that long. And then even Mother Ginger's going along with the whole there's a war going on thing because she tells Clara, don't you know it's dangerous here? Why are you here? And then she just keeps the key from Clara until Clara says my mother's dead, and she's able to swipe it from Mother Ginger as she's distracted. And the Nutcracker does make his way into this tent skirt place, but again, he's rendered stupid and useless. The clowns start jumping on him, covering his face and eyes, and he is swinging his sword around blindly, and I don't believe this is a fight. I think, again, they're just turning the Nutcracker into a comedic device and an emotional punching bag. So Clara steals the key, she and the Nutcracker run back out, and they escape to an alcove. And I know in the book and ballet, the two were in love. I don't believe this relationship. They have shown no reason that they care about each other than she's the long-lost princess and she can give him orders. And it turns out once they use the key to open the egg is just a music box. And the smart, scientific Clara doesn't think to look anywhere else or to take this box apart and look for any gears or keys or any other things she could use against the mice and Mother Ginger. And then they return to the palace and give the key to Sugar Plum. The other regents are gone, and again, there's no reason for this movie to exist. There is no reason that should be an adaptation of the Nutcracker if they're not going to use the snow or flowers, which are so iconic and popular to and in the story. And then Sugar Plum uses the key to turn on the engine, and I kid you not, she goes full Hitler, where instead of the Third Reich, it's a Third Realm. Instead of invading Poland, she wants to invade the Fourth Realm. And instead of getting rid of Jews and Romanis, she wants to get rid of the mice, Mother Ginger, and whoever left is on, I think it's the clowns. She wants to get rid of the clowns. Oh yeah, and she also wants to create her own regime of discipline and order. We didn't need that extreme of bad guys in the book or ballet. The fact that the mice wanted to chew up all the toys and candy people was bad enough. We didn't need to make them tyrants or emperors of evil. And I know the book came out in the 1800s, and we've already have a lot of stories about World War II. You don't need to make another one. So yeah, this movie gave up being an adaptation like 30 minutes ago. So while it's no longer an adaptation, I'm just going to keep going to cover a little bit more of the movie. Sugar Plum has Clara and Nutcracker thrown into the same dungeon as the other two regents, and all the regents do and the Nutcracker do is say, Clara, it's not your fault, we still love you. And then she gets mad at the Nutcracker, and I don't believe this conflict at all. And then Clara looks at her egg again and finds out that you can flip part of it around and it turns into a mirror. And she realizes that everything you need is inside is just saying, believe in yourself. And this is all she needs to apologize to the Nutcracker for being a jerk to him. And then they have a very weak escape where they just break the chandelier, use the rope, and they use that to help them climb down from the top dungeon room where they are. And the snow and flower regions don't come with them. They stay behind because they're that useless to the Nutcracker story. Clara gives Nutcracker orders to go with Mouse Rings back to Mother Ginger and warn her about Sugar Plum Hitler, while Clara herself sneaks into the engine room via the watermill. And then there is some fighting, but I don't care at this point. This movie is already no longer an adaptation, and I don't care about these characters anymore, and I don't believe that there is an actual war going on. I think they just have this in here for some shallow conflict and action. So Clara ends up moving two pieces around in the engine, and she gets to reverse it and have the laser attack Sugar Plum and turn her back into a toy. But wouldn't she turn back into a candy person? And then Clara becomes queen. Yay. She and Nutcracker say goodbye. They don't have any romantic chemistry. And Clara goes home, where Drosselmeyer gets his only other line in this movie, where he says, Clara, your mother was the most creative and inventive person I ever knew, and there was never any doubt in her mind when I asked her what her best creation was. It was you. So yeah, the only two black characters that get speaking lines only exist to prop up Clara and make her better than everyone else. And then Clara goes to her dad and apologizes, which, okay. And then Louise and Fritz show up again because, hey, they were supposed to be here the whole time and they weren't. And they all dance to the walls with flowers. I don't care anymore. And then we cut to credits, and the credits. So, Disney made a huge point of not wanting to include any dancing, like any actual dancing in this movie, because either it doesn't like dancing or it's ashamed of the ballet. But the credits has the most beautiful ballet dancing and hip hop dancing, and I'm mad because the credits scene shows what the movie could have been. And then after about 2 minutes of dancing, that stops and we just get the rolling credits, and I hate it. So why does this matter? Because the Nutcracker at its core is a story about joy, wonder, adventure, and this movie has none of it. It tries to go for a more mysterious steampunk type realm where there's the toy world, the candy world, the snow world, and the flower world, but we hardly see any of those realms, and they don't feel magical at all. They just feel contrived. And I don't believe anybody in this movie experiences any joy or happiness. Everyone looks stoic all the time or bored. And the adventure is so pathetically weak, you can poke holes in it, and I don't care about this adventure. Again, I would rather watch the Barbie Nutcracker. So I don't recommend this movie unless you have a group of people together and you're about to do a drunk watching of this. That's the only time I would recommend watching this movie. Otherwise, you're better off with the Barbie Nutcracker or the half VeggieTales, half Sausage Party Nutcracker, the Macaulay Culkin Nutcracker, any other Nutcracker except the one that is actually a Holocaust allegory. There's so much to complain about this movie, but I had to limit it to just the adaptation, or else this would have been like 2 hours long. So I hope you have a really good December and a really good holiday, and I also hope that you find a better Nutcracker version than the Disney version. See you next time, friends!